Last year, my target was to read 100 books in the year, and I did that. This year, my target is to read just one book in the year, but one book in the Georgian language. Eti tsignis tsakitwa minda katulat. My name is Jim. This is my channel, Books, Reading and Stuff. Reading in a different language can be an enriching experience. I've looked at a few videos on YouTube about reading in a different language to help me on my journey. One suggestion is start with a familiar story. Choose a book you're already familiar with in your native language. This could be a classic or a popular book. Familiarity with the plot makes it easier to understand the content in a new language. This is not my first time reading in a different language. In the 1990s, I moved to France and I started reading in French. The first book I read in French was Voyage au centre de la Terre by Jules Verne. I already knew this book from reading it in English several years before then, Journey to the Centre of the Earth, and I had a dictionary to help me find all the words I didn't know, which were quite a few, and I read the book, and it was good to have a story I was familiar with, so I wasn't lost at any point in the book. The second book I chose was probably a mistake. It was Le Père Goriot by Balzac. I didn't know the story, and it was written in the early 19th century, and it was very long, and I wasn't particularly invested in the story about a spaghetti maker, and I haven't read any Balzac since. But then the third book I read on my French journey was L'étranger, Albert Camus, and this remains one of my all-time favourite books. The language is quite simple, straightforward, but the ideas are very deep. It starts with that famous line, Aujourd'hui, maman est morte, ou peut-être hier, je ne sais pas. J'ai reçu un télégramme de l'asile, mère décédée. And I use that line sometimes to show the problems with reading books in translation. Aujourd'hui, maman est dead. How we interpret maman. If it's translated as mother, it seems too formal. If it's translated as mummy, it seems too childish. And how we translate maman depends on how we think of the protagonist, Meursault, in this story. Second idea is to select a genre you enjoy. Pick a genre that you enjoy in your native language, whether it's fiction, mystery, romance, science fiction, or non-fiction. Choosing a genre you're passionate about can keep you engaged in the story. Again, when I was in France, I started reading mostly books in French by French authors, but by 1995, after I'd been in France 4 years, I started reading a lot of crime novels in French, and these could have been translated from the American, from the English, books by Sarah Paretsky, Patricia Cornwell, Agatha Christie, because I like the genre, and the genre is very strong, the plot is very strong in crime novels. I went to my local bookshop today in Georgia, asked if they had any crime writers in Georgian, and they couldn't find any. They had lots of romance writers, but I don't think crime is a big genre here, which is a shame. A third suggestion is to consider dual language books. Opt for books that are available both in your native language, in my case English, and the language you want to learn, in my case Georgian. In this way, you can easily compare the two versions for better comprehension. And I have a few books like that. There's this book, Iggy, Cemel Kachkadze. This is the Georgian version. This is the English version. This is one I'm quite tempted by because it's quite short and the story is relatively simple. I've read the English translation. I'd like to read the original in Georgian. I also have Tales from Kartli, Revaz Georgi Avaladze. This side it's in English, this side it's in Georgian. And then I have, this is one of the suggestions from the bookshop, and I think it's a good suggestion. Nododumbadze, Granny, Iliko, Ilarian and I. This is the English version, which was translated in Soviet times. To date, it's my favourite Georgian book in English translation, so it's my favourite Georgian book I've actually read. And this is the Georgian version, which I haven't read yet, but I could start with that. Dumbadze wrote a lot of books for children. This is not for children, but there's a lot of humour, and I think I can see I already started once and I've been writing things in it. 3 days ago on my community tab I put up a poll as to which book I should read, and I only got 10 votes. The poll is still open if you want to vote. This one, Granny, Iliko, Ilarian and I, is currently in the lead. It had 4 votes. Dato Turashvili had 3. Tales from Kartli had 2, and Iggy just had 1. So I might go with the poll leaders here and start with this one. And the 4th potential choice of dual language books is this one, Dato Turashvili, American Fairy Tales. And I'm not a great fan of Dato Turashvili, but there is a Georgian version and an English version. I did start laboriously writing the Georgian and then using Google Translate to come up with the English, but just using Google Translate to go through a whole book would be very tedious, or using the dictionary to go through every word. One of the videos I saw was by Robin McPherson. His suggestion was to read one chapter extensively, just read it through without using dictionary or Google Translate, and then read the first chapter again, but intensively, looking up all the words you need to know, and then going on to the second chapter, but reading that extensively. Because he suggests the first chapter has a lot that you want to know for the rest of the book, like the characters, the setting and the tone of the book. But then after that, you should have it, if you've read the first chapter intensively, in your mind, so you can read the rest of the book extensively without resorting to Google Translate or a dictionary every time there's a new word. Another suggestion is to start with children's books. This is also Nododumbadze, Lexebi, and I have had a look at some of the poems in here. The language is simpler, but the language in children's books, a lot of it is just for the children. I prefer to read an adult book, and my resolution is to read an adult book in Georgian. Like children's books, another possibility is graphic novels, because you also have the pictures. This is Mouse, the Georgian translation of Mouse. And I've also got some Georgian graphic novels. This is the poet Rajab Shavala, and he has a graphic novel here. And Georgia's most famous work, Vipkis Khaltsani, The Knight in the Panther Skin, and this is a graphic novel of The Knight in the Panther Skin, so I might have a look at these as well, although in English I don't gravitate towards graphic novels. When I lived in France, I read some more, because bande dessinée are very popular in France, so I read the Asterix books and the Tintin books when I was in France. I do have one Tintin book in Georgian. I think there's only one available in Georgian, The Cigars of Pharaoh. Another suggestion is to explore translated works. In the bookshops there's a lot of translated works, because the world is big and Georgia is small, so a lot of the international books are translated into Georgian. Read books by authors you already enjoy, but in the language you want to learn. Many popular works have been translated into Georgian. and I have a few that have been on my shelf for a while unread. This is Night Circus by Erin Morganson in Georgian. This is Ready Player One. Ready Player One I haven't read yet, so this will be a new book. I've read Night Circus, and I've also got H.G. Wells here. There's two books, War of the Worlds and the Time Machine, translated into Georgian. Another suggestion is to start with short stories or essays. Begin with shorter texts like short stories, essays or articles. This can be less overwhelming than a full-length novel and allow you to make progress at your own pace. Further suggestion is to watch film and TV adaptations. I don't like many Georgian films. They obviously have a much smaller budget than American blockbusters and are very more parochial, but this could be a way of gaining motivation in the language you want to learn. The final suggestion was to set realistic goals, and I think the goal of reading just one book in the year, for me, that's a realistic goal. Usually my New Year's resolution is just learn Georgian, which is a very vague goal, and I soon fall by the wayside. Georgian for me is a difficult language. I don't have great language skills. At school we studied French and Latin, but I wasn't excelling in those classes. I did much better in maths and geography, and Georgian is different for me to learn than French because, as you see with Georgian, the alphabet is different. Now I know all the letters in Georgian, but seeing a word in Georgian, I have to spell out the word with the different characters. There's very few words I just recognize, but if I look at a book in French, I recognize all the words. Like if I look at a book in English, I recognize the words. I don't have to sound them out as I'm spelling them. Okay, if you have any other ideas, if you've read books in another language, let me know what helped you in the comments below, and I will see you on the next video. Goodbye.